Welcome to the Strategy Investment Podcast with Brett Warner. Brett is a successful entrepreneur and investor, and he and his team have sold over $1 billion in real estate. And this is a show about those very topics: investing, real estate, and family finance. My name is Jason. I'm your co-host, and I'm here along with you, asking questions and trying to learn as much as possible. And whether you're listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube, we're glad that you're here. And today we are talking about building wealth, how to build wealth. Brett, good to be back. What do you think? We're talking about building wealth today. What's the first thing that comes to mind?
I'm glad to be back, and another day, another dollar, I used to say in the job, and don't say that so much anymore because I just take day by day, but
always a good approach. So if you watch our first episode, you know that our format is basically taking your questions and presenting them to Brett and seeing how he has approached things throughout a long career in investing in real estate and seeing how things go here. And really, one of the first questions that we got, probably one of the most often asked questions, is how do I know the right time to invest? How do I know that I have enough to invest? When is that? Is there a right time? What do you think?
Well, I guess it comes down to, where you're at in life. That's a kind of a tricky question, but
it's a broad question, that's for sure. But I think, a lot of people would say, well, I'm barely making it. There are some months we're actually a little bit short. Some months we have a little bit left over, and then I put it in a savings account. But how do you know when you can go, yeah, I'm going to begin investing?
Well, it's just breaking through fear, I think. I break it down. It's like fear often will keep you from doing something. And so when you see fear, you need to recognize it. Is it really keeping you from falling off the edge, or are you fearful of opportunity? And I would say the first, 3, 4, 5 years, every time I invested, even back in stocks when I was in my young 20s and teens, I always felt like it was too much. I felt like that the $300 I put away was just a lot of money. I didn't have that money, and I'm so glad I put it away today. And then even on real estate, the first house I bought, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm going to have enough, and let me try to put enough down. Well, by owning those assets over time, that will grow, and then you can peel off those things. A lot of times I look at my different allocations or properties and stocks as a farm. And so you got to start planting your seeds. And you can either rent your seeds and never own them, or you can slowly start owning one little seed at a time. That could be your house. It could be, a decent stock. It could be an investment. It could just, if you haven't learned how to invest, just learn how to save in a savings account with a simple CD. There's a lot of banks that up to $2,500 gives you 3-4%. But hopefully you can save more than $2,500 if you want to get into real estate.
Yeah, Brett, you're touching on something there that I think really resonates with people. I know it resonates with me, is kind of this fear, really, I would say in general, of finance, of going like, ooh, the stock market, yeah, I know, I've heard people do that, but I'm really not sure. We talked about how to invest in real estate last episode. Check that out if you haven't already. But one of the things that I would say, and really even ask you about, is, that fear of going, oh, I think it prevents people from investing in general. And what I mean by that is, even personally, I began by putting money in a savings account rather than trying to invest in stock or property or whatever. What are your thoughts on that? Now, rather than the savings account, where would you start? Do you start in the savings account? How do you think about that first step?
Well, for me, I don't like saving money. Okay, to me, if I got $3,000 in my bank account, I think, why is $3,000 sitting in my bank account making 0% in savings? I need to go spend it. There's a return. If I go buy myself those new skis or that new whatever that is, that's my return on my savings account. So I go spend my savings account. I do think that anybody should have so many days, months put away, and then that's when I
Rainy
tell
day
somebody,
fund
yeah,
kind of thing.
well, you'd want to have 3 to 6 months probably put away, and that would show that you can start to save your money. And depending on how well you sleep, would be 3 months or 6 months. And some people might need a year of living. I think that's a lot because I like my dollars working for me, see? And so I invest them. And so generally, if I hit about 3 months of savings, and I've done this forever, the rest goes to work. The rest goes to work. Every one of those dollars that I have is working. It's either working in real estate, it's either working in stocks, it's either working in an investment. It's just working. When savings is just sitting there. And so I tell somebody, you're telling me that I put my money in that account, I get 1%? I said, let me go spend it. But if you can tell me to, hey, Brett, I can get you, 5 to 10% on that money, and 10%, you start looking at running, because if people promise you 10%, that's generally plus. It can, you just watch out for what they're selling. But if somebody tells you get 6 or 5% and you put out your portfolio, that's more encouraging to me. It's much more. Now my returns are much higher, but I sleep very well, and I don't really, this dollars to me is just dollars.
Right.
I've seen guys. Let me leave it to this. Like I've seen guys with and you'll probably hear me say this again, but I've seen a guy with 20 shovels, and he's a very happy man. He's very happy because he knows how he's going to provide. And I've seen a man with $1 million, and he's unhappy.
Okay, now let's expand on that for just a second. You said I've seen a man with 12 shovels. I think I know what you mean by that, but expand on that. I think you're talking about employees, right? You're talking about going or is that 12 things that he's trying to do?
I'm just talking about an entrepreneur out there. I'm talking about a contractor. I'm talking about a guy just finding, self-worth, and a guy that's happy with what he got. And the guy has 12 shovels, and he knows how he's going to provide for his family the rest of his life.
Right.
I have another guy that guy's going to dig a lot of holes to make $1 million.
Right.
But the guy got $1 million, and he's more upset than the guy with 12 shovels. And all I'm getting at is it's a mind perspective. And as we start to search these things out and we look, we go, wait. The reason I learned in aviation and going back to these things was I needed to make money so I could learn to manage my money. I tell people, I said, if you can become a plumber, or you can be an engineer, or you can do some people are heart surgeons, and they're like, I can't figure out money. I'm like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. You know how to do heart surgery, and you don't know nothing about finances, so you make, several $100,000 a year, but you have no idea to manage. You spend all your time working that shovel. So there's one side, the shovel guy is happy, but he's working his whole life. And he doesn't have his time. He can't buy back his hours in the day because he's got to dig the holes. But then there's another guy who has got $1 million, and he's just not happy. So the journey is the fun part. And once you get there, the $1 million, I tell you, won't make you happy. I mean, that's what my whole point is you got to be happy in the beginning of the journey. Often, used to tell people 20 years ago, they say, well, Brett, let's go. And I said, first question I need to ask you, what's enough?
Right.
Otherwise, you don't know when to stop.
Right.
Right. And so you have to set a goal, and you can adjust that goal, but you got to know. And, and somebody tells me, my goal is to own the world and 50 million. I say, get out of my office.
Right.
Because I don't want to work with that person. I want to work with somebody with reasonable goals. I could get that person to 50 million. There's no question to me, but I don't want to really know that person. I don't.
Right.
I don't really have much interest. That's all they want. And so, life is much deeper than just money. But the money can buy back those hours so you can spend time with people. You can do that at work, but then you have to do what the boss says, and you have to respect the boss. I mean, there's things that I wanted to do, but I couldn't talk anymore because I had to go and be a good employee. And so I wasn't able to, and that's why I like being my own boss for the last 20 years, is I can go and wake up, go to the meetings I want, and speak to who I want. I don't have to work with the $50 million dad.
Right, right. Now, I know for you, what I've heard you say, both in the first episode and because we're a longtime friends here now, is property, real estate, and stock are really two of the great ways that you point to build wealth over time. Let's stop on the stock for just a minute, because I think that is a really pretty easy way to start, right? Because you just talked about savings versus putting your money to work for you.
Correct.
Right? So with respect to the stock, I know, what would you say to someone that's like, okay, yeah, I'd be willing to do that. I'm a little intimidated. is there a place that you would point them at? Is there a website you'd point them at to go, here's where I'd suggest to go get started, without going, hey, here are 5 stock tips? You know, I don't think that's what this show is about. It's really more about the way we're thinking about building wealth. So what would you suggest to that person to go, okay, here's where I would go to start on considering where and how to buy stocks?
Well, you know, going way back, I probably wouldn't suggest stocks, because everything's built on a pyramid. And so when you're building stuff, you would, you know, because we're not going to somebody that's 40 or 50. We're going to go to somebody that's in their 20s or 30s. Hopefully I catch them by that age. And then we're going to be talking about mutual funds, S&P 500. We're going to talk about Russell. We're going to talk about, there's different sectors that you could get, and that would give you a broad spectrum, because that's where you'd want to start. So what happens is, like, let's just say I'm working with a 22-year-old, and I tell that 22-year-old, start saving. And then once you save that enough, you got enough, I don't care if it's a month, then start investing.
Whatever lets you sleep, you said, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now you go and you start investing, and you might start buying some mutual funds and stuff. When you go visit the bank then in 1 year, the bank sees that you actually have a savings, which is not very much, but then you have investment. And they go, wow, look, this kid knows how to invest. And I remember them looking at me, because when I was building this stuff before, while I was still at Boeing, I had my things that I was building. I had a little Roth, and I had my little 401k, and I had these little things. And then I had my little joint account. And when I went to the bankers, like, wow, you actually have savings. And it helped me get the loan for my first loan, just because I showed the bank that I'm able to save money. And it wasn't very much money. I mean, really, it was not a lot. In the spectrum of things, and anybody could save that amount of money with over a 3-year period. You know, it's just
That's great. And actually, that kind of triggers us a little segment that we like to do. We did it first episode, and we're going to do it again because my producer's giving me the nod here. So we did a segment last week called Origin Story, and this is based in the idea that any superhero along the way, any superhero movie that you've ever watched has an origin story. Where did that guy come from? And we talked about last week, it was Spider-Man, and he got bit by the radioactive spider. I mean, of course, you've got Superman, who came from Krypton, you know, the force of the planet it was more strenuous, and that made little baby Superman into this amazing guy when he hit planet Earth. And I want to talk about that with you today, because you just referenced a little bit of your origin story, and I think it's so relevant. So you said you were talking about your time at Boeing, and some of the things that you were thinking about, the things that you were aspiring to, both from a real estate and an investing standpoint. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like where you were from a mindset, even early on?
Okay. Yeah. For me, you know, at Boeing, there was a couple different phases in Boeing. Before that, there was a lot of building, a lot of school. But when I got to Boeing, that was my really a big corporate job, and it was kind of like learning. I mean, I kind of had corporate jobs before that, but it was more restaurants and things. And then I went to BF Goodrich, which was kind of more of a beginning kind of job on the repair, and you'd work on individual planes, where this was more like a big assembly line and these things. So I worked in the lean line, and that lean line generally was where I got to learn a lot of way of Toyota and Honda, and I got taught by Japanese.
Now, right there is really an interesting point, because I have read the book, The Lean Startup, and this idea of lean is a project management kind of theology almost, if you would, right?
Yeah.
And so which came from the Japanese, I think, right? So you were kind of at the front end of that whole thing happening.
Correct. That would have been back in 96.
Yeah.
Like that, 95.
That's fascinating.
So, and, you know, I don't even think they had like lean in college yet, right?
Right.
They were just bringing it over here, and they were paying those guys a whole lot of money. It frustrated me. I'm like, you're paying these guys $50,000 a week to be here? And that just made me mad, because I'm sitting here working, making, I won't even tell you, but not nearly that.
Right.
And I'm thinking, my God, I can do his job, you know, but I learned a lot, and it was a great opportunity. At my first part of Boeing, though, I was in a dark wing. I was stuck there. I got a really cruddy job. I thought to myself, oh, you know, I'm going to do this on my own. I got through college.
Now, when you say dark wing, I want to say for the audience out there, literally,
yes,
a dark wing of an airplane. You have shared with me previously that they pumped oxygen in there. You were in the wing of a plane to the point where you were doing work, and they had to pump oxygen in there for you to survive as a human being.
Bring lights in. Yes, yeah. You didn't pump oxygen in. You were going to, you were going to
not make it out of there.
And you probably
Right.
want to come out straight-headed.
Okay, so I just want our audience to understand where you were at this point.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Okay,
So from there.
let me lead in real quick because it's an important point. It's just, we'll get into this later in the show and stuff, but it's relationships, why they're so important. So I thought I did all this on my own. I went to college, I did this, I did that. I'm going to now go get my first job. I had 3 friends or 3, even my dad and family and people. Hey, you got to want a job? No, I'm going to get my job. So I decided I was going to go get my job. I put my application in, God stuck me in, well, what I would call one of the darkest places of Boeing, which would be the wing. But the good thing was that was the year that they brought radios in so I could actually listen. And so I went into this spot. I had to crawl in through these baffles, and I could go through the wing and get all the way up to the corner. I put the corner of a 7th and 6th, 7th together, and my job was to make that wing join to the body in a sense where when it went to the next phase. Well, it was a dark spot, but the great part was I spent about 2-3 years mastering that job, making it better, and that's when I got moved into the lean job, and I can get into that story. But generally, I was in this dark spot, and I thought, oh my gosh, I went through all this school, I've been working hard, and I'm never going to get out of here. But what I didn't know is what I was learning. I had those headsets on, and I was bringing in finance. I was bringing in some good teaching. I was bringing in all sorts of just different aspects. 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours. The great part, I was also paid $20-some an hour to do that. And I thought, my golly, but I didn't realize that. I was counting my hours to get out of there. I'm like, you got to be kidding. I got to go back to the JOB tomorrow. But what I learned was when I went out of there, then I had an opportunity to be honest, and I know we're on time, so I had to step up a position. And when they wanted to do that, and they just wanted to get through. Boeing wanted to do their thing and move on, and I said, no, I'm not going to spend 2 weeks here wasting my time. I'm just going to do my job. And they wanted me to kind of bring that Japanese guy in and just say, hey, it's all good. And I said, no, it's not. I said, I'm not going to spend 2 weeks here if you guys want to do that, but we got a new tool coming in. And so I was honest with them all the way up. My first two-level management was not happy with me. But the Japanese sensei, he was very happy. He came up, he let them remove them from their job and put me in first position.
Is that right?
Yes. And so at that point, then I was in because of honesty, and I really just didn't want to waste my time. I'm like, seriously, I don't want to play a game here. You guys want to go make a tool that I'm going to be bringing a whole new tool in here after we're done. We're spending 2 weeks. So we actually made a big difference. And that's where it was my lead in into lean, which then allowed me, it was just being honest and not wanting to waste my time or anyone else's, especially the $50,000 a week they're paying this guy.
And what I'm hearing you also say is that was the time when you were really learning the finance stuff. You were listening to, right, what the equivalent of this podcast, really, right? It was tapes, probably.
Oh, AM radio.
AM radio.
Yeah.
And you were listening to that, and that's what really kind of got you started in the investment and learning the fundamentals.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if anybody's been in this long enough, they know Bob Brinker. I mean, he was around years ago. You don't hear about him much because there's so many podcasts. I can go through several different names, but I really don't want to send people off. And that really takes you back. I mean, Charlton Sheets, and anybody who's been who's somewhere above 40, they'll know who he is. And I ask kids often at 30, I'm like, don't you know Charlton Sheets? He's the guy who was at Midnight TV selling off contracts and saying, hey, become a millionaire, be like me. And these were the things that I was learning.
But the fundamentals were there as far as investing and building wealth. Okay, so another question that we got that I think was quite common. Should I hire a financial advisor? So people are considering, all right, how do I build wealth? Should I go hire a professional, or can I find my own dark wing and learn this on my own and go out and set out on my own and try and invest or have some of a set of strategy on my own? What do you think there?
Well, I think you could probably do both. I think I personally do both. I actually have a few advisors. Why? I just like bouncing off people. I don't need them. Actually, I teach them, and they actually say, call me more. I'll be talking about all sorts of crazy stuff that I kind of listen and how I came to my thought processes. But often, I do have 2 or 3, and then I have my own. But I kind of manage all of them,
right? Rather
than them manage my money.
Right.
And that doesn't mean, and I'm taking their ideas, I'm listening to what they say. But often, I tell you, they call me at the wrong time and tell me when to sell. The market's up. I mean, the market's down, and they're like, hey, you need to sell. You're going down. I'm thinking, shouldn't you called me when it was up? And then when it's down, they're like, hey, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, hey, look at this one. It's running up, and let's buy more. I'm thinking, well, shouldn't you called me when it was down? But they kind of get orders, and they're so busy. And that's why it's important to know how to manage your own property. The reason I have a manager is if something was to happen to me, I'm worried about my family. And so I want to make sure that that money is managed and that money is taken care of. Because if I just was all of a sudden gone after I leave here tonight, I want my wife to have a chance to be able to grab a hold of that which we steward over.
Right, absolutely. And one of the things that you've told me along the way is, as far as building wealth, you said, look, Jason, first of all, invest in your 401k or your retirement. Have that. That's important to have. And partly because of what you just said, your family, the long term, that's going to grow. Yeah. And that's where that financial advisor what I hear you saying is that's where that financial advisor can come in handy. But you've also said to me, hey, Jason, Motley Fool is a website where you can get, stock recommendations, and there are ways to maybe more aggressively, am I putting it the right way? More aggressively invest in a better return on your investment.
Yeah, if you're looking to narrow down your companies, and there's so many companies out there, you got to find somewhere that you're going to get your swath to look at. And so when you ask me that, I mean, the reason I'm talking to you about the fools is because you're walking with me, and I can kind of walk with you. But I wouldn't just send somebody that doesn't know what they're doing to the fools, because they might be a fool. And, I mean, we're all kind of fools, really. I always say it's a shot in the dark, right? Because we're kind of betting on things down here, and it's promises and how things turn out. But I do know that I really encourage people. There's two places to put your money. I mean, honestly, so if there's real estate, it's always the best. If you can get your money in real estate, the return is phenomenal. But really, you want to get your money into a Roth, which is a tax deductible, and that's because you can go. I think it's $5,500 a year if you're under 55 or 60, and so right now it used to be $5,000. So right now, if you can get that $5,000, then get that $5,000 put away. After that, then ask the next question in the next podcast, right? Because where do I go now, Brett? I got all my 5,000, but a lot of people have a hard time even getting 5,000 put away, or 6,000 a year, excuse me. And then and the reason that they say a 401k, the only reason they say a 401k is really wise is because usually it's matched, right? So they'll give you up to 8%. Well, if I am matched 50%, when I was at Boeing, if they matched me 8%, no matter what, every year I was going to do 8%. I mean, I took it always to 15. I always did my Roth, but at a minimum, when I was talking to the 50-year-old guys that I thought adults understood, I said, you got to at least be matched. I mean, you're automatically up 100%.
That's
or maybe it was
free
50,
money.
I can't remember.
Right,
yeah,
they're matching your money. That's essentially what you're saying is when you, again, okay, so listeners, if your employer is saying there's a 401k option and we're going to match your contribution, that means they are going to literally give you that percentage of money from their pocket to your account, to your retirement account.
Yes.
So please do that.
Yeah. So that should be your first dollars from your company, and then after that, you should do your 5,500 to your Roth, and after that, you decide where you're going to go.
And the 5,500 number is important because that is a tax-free contribution, right?
Well, it's not even the tax-free. Well, it's not a tax-free contribution necessarily.
It'll be taxed at some point.
Well, it's taxed when you get it. So you're thinking of traditional. It's taxed when a Roth is taxed when you get it, but it grows.
Okay.
Tax free. So if I can put my dollars in today and have that not be taxed when I take it out 30 years from now, that's much better than not being taxed on my dollars.
That's a Roth, right? That's a Roth. That's the difference between a traditional IRA, which will be taxed when you take it out.
Correct.
And a Roth, which is taxed when you put it in.
Yeah, when you get paid, you get taxed. There's no write-off. But when I put it in there, that growth, which is where the key is,
right,
is that is not taxed. Also, I can pass it if they don't change things. Our senators can change things in Congress. But it can be then inherited to the next grandchild, and it can have 50 years of growth, and it can actually traditional Roths, traditional IRAs and 401ks, you have to start taking out certain amounts by a certain age because they want you to depreciate that. And the older you are, they're going to say, take out more because we don't want you to have anything left.
Right, right. Okay, so another question. I'm just looking down my notes, and I mean, we've had so many questions actually in Building Wealth. It's been really interesting to see how many questions came in from friends, family, listeners. One of the questions is, I've heard that compound interest is the holy grail of building wealth. Would you agree? What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a good segue from the Roth.
Yes.
And that's why it's so powerful. So I'll give you a couple scenarios, okay? If there's one thing you get from the two podcasts we have, and if you listen to all the others and you don't get anything, if you can get this was a changed thing in my life. I was probably 15 years old, and I got this, and that's why I started looking and investing in financing and figure out how compound works. What is this? What is this? Not savings. What is this investing? Because I heard about the power of compound, and I hear there's 7 wonders, and often somebody says out there, I've heard say, this is the 8th wonder. If you have enough time, it's an amazing thing, and I'll give you some stories as we go in the future about like how I've seen small little pods, what I thought was a whole lot of money, like $400, and what it did 18, 20 years later. But I'll just give you, here's a couple quick things on a compound. Okay. So if you're saving for your child, this is only 18 years, and you put $1 a day away, that will be about $13,000 when that child is 18 for school. That's not bad for $1 a day.
Absolutely.
But if you start at age 5, $1,800 less, you only have $7,700. Okay? So you started 5 years later, only 5 years later of the 18. When you went to 18, you put in $1,800 less, but you literally have $5,000. I mean, the $1,800 is now 3 times less. So and I just want to give you one other thing. So that's just like the short 18-year-old.
Right. So what you're saying is that investment, ultimately, it compounds on itself.
Correct.
The percentage,
absolutely,
it keeps growing. It compounds on itself.
If you do it long enough, the amount will literally be more than your original deposit. So if you put in $1,000 and you have 1,000 times worth of returns, you're up 1,000 times. At that point, if it goes up 1%, pretty much, I might be a little off in my math, it's going up your whole investment amount. And so this is what people don't understand. There's a lot of things out there, and we don't need to get into, but they've gone up 1,000%. And I give you companies' names left and right. But let me just talk about you and me real quick, okay? Let's just say you put away, this is a common thing. I know probably people have heard this, but I just wanted to say, let's say that you, Jason, you put away, started at the age of 21, and you put away $24,000 a year. And if you could put, $2,400 every year, okay? That's $2,400 every year. And if you do that for approximately from 21 to 30, okay?
Okay.
You did that. You
okay.
Say, I'm done. I did my 8 years.
Right.
The money's not going anywhere, but I'm not going to sell it. You stop. Then I am now 30, and I say, Jason did well, but I want to quit. I'm going to start investing now. And I start at 30, putting that same $200. That's $200 a month, just to help anybody out with their math.
Yep.
So $200 a month, which equals $2,400. So I put away that. At age 30, I start, and I go to age 67. So that's a total of 38 years of me putting away $2,400 a year. You stopped at age 30. I had to go from age 30 to age 68 putting my money away.
Okay, you kept going, yeah.
Now, just to give you an idea of where we're at, who do you think would have more money?
Oh, gosh. I think based on the principle, I'm going to say the younger me.
The younger you.
Yeah, because I started early, and even though I stopped, time is on my side because of compound interest.
Absolutely. Because if you put a total of $21,000 in, you stopped at age 30, that's going to be worth over $2,500. I, who started at 30, which I told our producer earlier, if you start at 30, I said, hey, you start now. She's going to have to put away $9,100. Well, she's already put it away, but $9,100, $91,000. She's going to put that money away. How much do you think that's going to be? From age 30 to 68. So now she's put away a whole lot more money.
Right.
Or I put away a whole lot more money than you did.
Yes.
$1.4 million.
Wow. And that is the power of compound
interest.
interest.
And the truth in that compound, remember, every 7 years on a 7% return, because there's a rule of 72, we'll get into that later. But what I'm getting at is that really all that money was made from 60 to 67.
Right.
Because what happened was that was at 1.2. If I could take out this guy, take me out to not 70, but just add one more year, that's, I would double that 1.4, and that'd be 2.8. So it's those last years, and there's stories I'll talk to you about Buffett. If he stopped, like, at a younger age, and he was like a normal person, didn't start at 11,
Right.
but he started at 24, and he quit and went on a sailboat at 60, he'd be worth a whole lot less than he's worth today. But because he has that extra 10 years in the front, and now he's 90, he's got 30 years in the back. Oh my gosh. So he's tripled that 1.5
Right.
to 3 to 3 to 9. So really, even me, when I say, I'm going to die with, I'm just going to make up a number. I'm going to die with $100 million, okay? I really don't make 50 million of that until I'm 90 to 96.
Right. Right. If you make it that long,
yeah.
If we're blessed to make it that long.
But if you can pass it to your kids or through trusts or things like this, then you can help out the family as time goes. So, some people just say, don't be a trust fund baby. Well, there was some truth to that, but trust funds are used a lot more today. Not in those areas, but not by the mega rich.
Right.
They're used to kind of encapsulate, to watch taxes, to gift things out, to make sure that you're not way overtaxed, because it can get hit if you don't manage your money.
So one of the things that I want to ask you about was, I saw this graphic. I've actually pulled it up. I got it in front of me. And I saw it come up on Instagram, but I thought it was great for this show because we're talking about building wealth. And this graphic says, it's very social media like, because it's like, hey, these are the 4 things to do to build wealth. And I just wanted to run it past you and see what you thought. Okay. The first one is this: remove debt. Then the second one is spend less. The third one is earn more. And the fourth one is invest wisely. So first one, remove debt. Second, spend less. Earn more is the third one. Invest wisely. What do you feel like of those 4 things? Which one stands out of going like, oh yeah, that's this is the one, or these are the 2, or
well, I'll tell you which one stands out opposite what you said when you went through those. The opposite one is the earn more. So when you said earn more, I'm thinking, you don't get rich by earning more. I've seen guys that make all sorts of money and they're broke. And so it's not about earning more. It's about how you manage that which you have. And, it's you take the money in and then you learn how to manage it. And when you do that right, then, you'll have money. But I really believe that, truly, if you ask me, and I really believe that some people I don't know if they really think I really do, but I really think I'm poor. And if I think I'm poor, I actually have money. The moment I think I'm really rich, I start spending every penny of it. Every penny of it starts going away. So you kind of have to think that you're poor to be rich.
Right.
But if you think you're rich, you never think you got enough. You never think it's you'll start spending the money. And even if you had $1 million to put away, you'll go through it in no time. You'll just be gone. Well, there was 1 month that I thought I was rich, and I went, oh gosh, I gotta think I'm poor. I spent way too much money this month. I just ran through way too much money. I'm gonna be poor if I keep thinking I'm rich.
But it is a mindset. What I hear you saying is it is a mindset. Correct. It's the way that you think about money. It's the way that you steward money.
Yes.
And
hard work. It took a lot of work. I didn't say earn more. I told you to show up to work and do well. Right. I didn't. So it's not about always what you. Because honestly, most of the time people are getting promotions or things. It's relational. It's because you were a good person. You showed up. You were reliable. You cared about the people around you. Every once in a while, there's those brainiacs that they don't need to care about anybody, but they're whatever that brainiac is, and that's fine. But often, what I've said to people is, I said, get into your field, care about people, and watch where you can go. But you got to be aware of everybody around you. Keep your head up. Keep your eyes up. Right. Be aware of who's going by you and try to help people out. And sometimes that might be just as easy as grabbing the potato chips out of the bottom of the vending machine for them.
Right.
See?
Yeah.
It's opening the door for somebody. It's just being courteous. It's when your boss is having a bad day, help them out. Often if we could learn to help each other out more, I can go into a whole other thing about there's unions and then there's businesses and they fight each other. And it's like, if we could just get on the same page. I worked in the union and I've been in management. I've been on both. That's the crazy part. I've been deep in the union. So I understand how they think. Right. And then now I've ran this company, large company, and I know what it's like. I'm like, man, can't we just get on the same page? We could all be so much better, but there's so much of this kind of like, what can I get from you? From the management side and from the employee side. Right. Rather than how do we raise each other up?
So, yeah. Those relationships, so important. And I think both to building a good life for yourself, but also, that term wealth can be a broad-ranging term. Can't hit it as well.
And back to your questions. I mean, all those, because those things, other things you said are very important. You said, besides the one I took out, you said saving money, invest.
Right.
What were the three?
Removing debt, spending less,
Yes.
investing wisely.
Yeah. So all three of those go together.
Right.
Because I'm getting things under control. And then now I'm going to invest it.
Yeah.
But until you get those first two under control, you won't be able to ever have a penny to invest.
That's so good. So we're coming to the end of this episode. I think there's a couple of just parting thoughts. One is this, that, and I heard you say something to this effect, and I know our producer says this all the time, is don't let the fear of starting stop you.
Correct.
And you said, just go ahead, set that savings, that rainy day savings apart, set the retirement apart, and begin investing.
Yes.
Don't let fear stop you. Take that first step. As we wrap up here, we want to thank our sponsors. One of our main sponsors is the Creative Consortium. It's where we meet. It's this studio. It's in Paulsbo, Washington. Their website is creativeconsort.net. And look, if you have more questions, we want to hear from you. You can visit our website and go ahead and put questions in there anytime. The website is strategyinvestment.net, strategyinvestment.net. We'd love to hear from you. Or, hey, if you put your questions on there, we'd even love to incorporate them into another one of our episodes down the road. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time.